Anime games are in a dubious place nowadays. We seem to be moving away from fighting games and embracing RPGs and battle royales. Series that people think deserve a good game are often relegated to smartphones, if not forgotten altogether. Naruto fans are starving. It's just not a good look overall. But through all the craziness, one series has consistently maintained a respectable level of quality. If you're not familiar with Gundam, well,
what you on here for?
In all seriousness, Gundam is one of the biggest anime in the world. It's a pioneer of both mecha and space operas. It's one of the shows that drove Toonami's golden age. It consistently gets better games than most of your faves, and that's why we're here today on Gundam's 43rd anniversary. For an anime game to be successful, I think it needs to answer 3 questions. Is it fun? Is it a good representation of its source material? Is it a good enough game in its genre? I've played at least an hour of the majority of anime games that came out on PS3 and 4. A lot of these games have a bunch of no's and kindos all over the place. Let's look at, for example, Fighters, One's Justice 2, the most recent One Punch Man and ReZero games, and Attack on Titan 2. Are they fun? Fighters, OJ2, and Attack on Titan are fun as fuck. ReZero is basically a visual novel, and I'm biased against those, so that's not really. One Punch Man isn't even fun when you're drunk, and I would know because I used Cuervo as a time waster for the last parts of my playthrough.
A 2-pack of ass!
Do they represent their source material well? Attack on Titan does. Killing Titans gets easier the more you do it, but you'll still have a hard time if you're surrounded. For OJ2 and Fighters, it's a close but not quite. I think OJ2 does a great job at making characters feel unique, but certain things like flight, Shigaraki's updated moveset, Tsuyu's invincibility, why the fuck is this even here? Don't translate well in situations where there's only one opponent. I think 2D and 3D fighters have a similar issue compared to arena fighters. Because they're confined to a smaller space, most of them can't fully replicate the dynamic battles their series are known for. Then there's things like JoJo, where they have to make up moves for a character because the way they usually fight would put them at a disadvantage or make them a menace in a 2D or 3D fighter. That's part of the reason why I think Eyes of Heaven may not be a better fighting game in All-Star Battle, but it's a better JoJo game. Back on topic though, immediate no for One Punch Man, and ReZero at least gets points for feeling like it belongs in the series. Are they a good enough game in their genre? Mostly easy answers here. Fighters is an excellent 2D fighter, OJ2 is a top 5 arena fighter while One Punch Man is nigh indisputably the worst, Attack on Titan is a top 3 Muso, and bias aside, I thought what I played of ReZero was passable. Compared to all of those, how does Gundam stack up? As a product, Gundam is a perfect example of what happens when the publisher of an anime game also owns that franchise. Earlier, I mentioned that Naruto fans were starving. I'll get into why later, but there are 5 current-gen Naruto games, and 3 of them are ports. In comparison, Dragon Ball has 6 with no ports, One Piece has 7 with 1 port, and Sword Art Online has 6 with 2 ports. Meanwhile, Gundam has 11 games. And the only port is an arcade game, so it's new enough for everyone outside of Japan. The reason for this is that Gundam makes actual money, like so much so that it was Bandai's top anime IP by a landslide before Dragon Ball got its shit together. And because Bandai owns the companies that animate and distribute Gundam, they can basically do whatever they want with it. And the result of that is 6 distinct series on current gen consoles. SD Gundam G Generation is your story series. If you want to try to get into Gundam without having to watch several 40 to 50 episode shows, these games will give you the gist. Genesis covers the Universal Century timeline, which is the original timeline of the series. It goes through all 4 parts of what I'm going to call the Char Saga: 79, Zeta, Double Zeta, and Char's Counterattack. The game also covers a decent amount of the side stories, spin-offs, and continuations like War in the Pocket, Blue Destiny, and Unicorn. Crossrays mainly covers 4 of the alternate timelines: Wing, Seed, 00, Iron-Blooded Orphans, and their spin-offs. I do have a few warnings though. It takes kind of a Xenoverse approach to the story, where you have a team of randoms interfering, but you're rewarded for reenacting the story. These games are also very long. Off no bullshit, it took me 14 hours to finish just the Gundam 79 story. That's almost half as long as it took me to finish Kakarot. And there are 10 more chapters in this game. They're fun games, but the time sink is ridiculous. Are you interested in Gundam model kits but don't want to spend actual money on them yet? Then the Breaker series is basically your toy box. You can buy parts, beat parts off your enemies, and do whatever you need to build the best Gunpla you can. The story is your typical toy anime stuff, but there's also co-op and PvP in there. Breaker 3 is fire and is one of my favorite Gundam games to this day. New, on the other hand, I heard nothing but bad things about it at launch, but now that Bandai's patched it, it's alright. It sets out to do different things from the original trilogy, and that's okay. If you want a more grounded approach to mecha games, Battle Operation may be for you. I'm not going to say much about the games since, unlike the last two series, Battle Operation is free to play. I typically don't play gacha games just on principle, but it was Gundam, so I said, fuck it, why not? Since it's free, and there's a network test coming for PC later this month, y'all might as well give it a shot too. If you end up liking it, there's also Code Fairy. It's got an actual story that's structured like an anime, endearing characters, mechanics exclusive to the game, and you can link your BO2 save to unlock things in both games. It's a nice acid flip, and I fuck with it. Then there's that one time Battle Operation tried to copy Versus and failed, but that game's dead and didn't leave Japan anyway, so, you know. We already talked a little bit about arena fighters, but this one's for that crowd. Do you want to play an arena fighter that has tons of support, isn't hindered by its IP, and is actually good? The Gundam Versus series is for you. The typical arena fighters only have maybe a year or so of progress and community feedback behind them, but Gundam Versus and Maxi Boost On are what happens when they have at least 15. If I had to pick one, I'd say grab Maxi since it hit consoles most recently. PlayStation runs monthly tournaments for it, and it made it to EVO as a side tournament, so it's also got a super competitive scene if you're really pressed about that. And, since it's made by people with some damn sense, it's also got lobbies, spectating, Wi-Fi indicators, 60 frames in rank. Play it 1v1, 2v2, 2v1 if you ain't no bitch. Hell, Gundam Versus even has 3v1 if you really want to test yourself.
What the fuck's going on?
The only downsides to the Versus series are, because of its origins as an arcade game, they don't follow the story. Both of them have a decent amount of single player content, especially Maxi, but you're gonna have to look elsewhere for a proper story. Oh, and Versus doesn't have local multiplayer for whatever reason. There are also 3 other games in development. SD Gundam Battle Alliance may be another installment of the Gundam Battle series and is on track for this year. Gundam Evolution is a multiplayer FPS also on track for this year, and based on the beta, I think Gundam's got another hit on their hands. And there's a Gundam Seed game on the way as well. Nothing else has been said about it, so I don't know if it's console or mobile, but it's an anniversary game, so we might hear something later this year. I wouldn't be surprised if it dropped next year along with the movie. Now, let's run these through the checklist. Are they fun? Mostly, but Code Fairy and G Generation will test your patience. Do they represent the source material well? In their own way, yes. G Generation covers the story, Battle Operation has the ground combat down while Versus nails a feeling of space combat, and Breaker gets that toy box feel right while potentially saving you from a Gunpla addiction. Are they good enough games in their genre? Battle Operation Next wasn't, but the rest of the games are solid. Breaker 3 is, New falls short but is serviceable now, G Generation is fine as long as you don't give a fuck about your free time, and Versus has been the best arena fighter out for 10 years now. As far as I'm concerned, the Gundam games are certified. Gundam has one of, if not the strongest anime game catalogs, but because the franchise isn't as popular outside of Japan, we missed a lot of the games. On PS2, we didn't get much after Gundam vs. Zeta Gundam. On PS3, we got Crossfire and the Muso, but we missed Breaker, Extreme Versus, 0081, Side Stories, and Unicorn. Things have gotten better now with more consistent worldwide releases, but we still missed the first few PS4 games. Hell, aside from Crossrays on PC, I don't think we got a single G Generation game in the West. So, to promote the series, I'm running a giveaway until the end of the month. All the information's in the description. Good luck! If you enjoy this kind of content, feel free to leave a like. If you've played a Gundam game, let me know in the comments what your favorites are. I want to try to get a video like this out once a week or two, alongside all the other games shown. We'll see how that goes. This has been Mobile Suit Rock with AniPlug Media. If y'all will excuse me, I'm trying to find my fa in a world of fours.